Hey guys, Chasey here with another video for Bite Size Success, and in this video we're going to be talking about the top 5 takeaways from Chapter 1 of the Invaluable Laws of Growth. Okay, so I know a lot of other YouTubers do like the top 30 or the top 10 points from a book, but I personally, every now and then I'll find a book where it's so dense and there's so much value in it that I feel like if you just did a top 10 for the book, you'd miss out on a lot of good stuff. So this current book I'm reading right now is a little bit of an older one, but I'm still finding tons and tons of value from it. And so I wanted to do a top 5 takeaways just from chapter 1 because I didn't really want to miss out on anything that was really good. So point number 1 is that hope isn't a strategy. And I think this is at the core of everything self-development, right? You have to control yourself in order to control your future. You can't really have that victim mentality. And just kind of hearing the author talk about how hope isn't a strategy made me really question what I wanted and made me reevaluate how I was going to get it, right? Because there's so many things. I feel like we have to audit ourselves, on a weekly, monthly basis because there's so many things that we want, but how much of it are we actually optimizing for and actually working towards as opposed to hoping that it kind of just comes our way, right? You know, if we want a second job or another job, are we just hoping that it comes to us? Or are we actually doing the work to make that job come to us or to go out and get that job, right? If we want a bigger home or if we want to write a book or whatever it is, are we hoping that we'll get discovered by someone who wants to hire us to write that book? Or, whatever it is, or are we actually taking the actions to make that happen, over the long term? And so as much as this wasn't a new concept for me, it was a really good reminder to focus in and question all the little things that I want. Am I actually working towards those things myself, or am I relying strictly on hope? Because hope, again, is not a strategy. It reminds me a lot of the first habit of the 7 habits, the 7 habits of highly successful people. And the first habit is to be proactive, right? It's to seek before someone seeks you. And that's how you really unlock your true potential and maximize your productivity, is by being the person to initiate that and go out and get it. And so that first point, that hope isn't a strategy, really reminded me of that habit, of that principle from another book. Okay, second point, when we are clear about what we want, the world responds with clarity. And basically what that means is that when you are very clear about exactly what you want, then the world is no longer foggy and you're able to optimize and work towards those specific things. I really struggle with this, and a lot of people really struggle with not knowing exactly what they want. They leave a lot of or they feel like they should leave a lot of options open because there's a lot of opportunity and availability out there. And what that does, that really actually limits us over time because we can't optimize for one thing, right? A lot of people end up jumping from one business or one job to another job, and they never actually are in that position long enough to dig deep enough to actually be productive and to actually level up. And I see that I've fallen that temptation myself, and I still kind of deal with it where I want to kind of jump around and jump to the next best thing, even though I know that that's not going to get me what I want. And so it's really important to just have clarity and focus on exactly what you want, and maybe throw in a little bit of faith and patience in there, right? Faith that it will work out in the end, and patience just knowing that it's going to take you a little bit longer to get there, but it'll actually pay off. And this is exactly why I'm dedicating the next 5-10 years of my life, build out this brand that really focuses on productivity, because I know that if I invest 5-10 years into it, it'll be a massive success, but it just takes 5 or 10 years to really put into it in order for it to get that way. But if I kind of already mentally start with, this is exactly what I want, and this is what I'm willing to sacrifice to get there, then the world will respond with clarity and will actually reward me and will give me that goal, even if it takes, 5 to 10 years. Okay, so the third takeaway from chapter 1 is the law of diminishing intent. And what this law is it states that the longer it takes you to get something done, or rather the longer that you put off something, the harder or the less likely it is for you to actually do that task. So the easiest way to kind of envision this is that every single task is like a weight, right? And that weight is really, really light when it first comes across your desk. However, the more you procrastinate and the more that you put it off, the heavier that weight gets, and the more costly it is from an energy standpoint in order to do that, right? So if you need to call someone and you really don't want to call that person, you keep putting it off and putting it off, then it's going to get harder and it's going to require more and more energy to actually make that call than if you had done it when you first originally had to do it. Now, the reason why this law actually scared me was because from a productivity standpoint, it's horrible. It means that something that requires only a little bit of energy, that if you put off, actually will end up requiring a lot of energy. And that's really something you want to avoid if you want to be productive. So even while I was reading this book, I was actually putting off a couple of things that I really didn't want to do, that I needed to do, that had to get done at one point or the other, but I just didn't want to do it. And this scared me into, okay, I'm just gonna start knocking these off, because I don't want them to get any harder than they already are for me. And I'm going to have to do them eventually. And so I want to do them now while it's easy, rather than wait until it gets harder to do it and it requires more energy. And so that law kind of really put in place this mindset that I'm going to start adapting and really training and building up, where when it comes across my desk, it just gets taken care of very, very quickly, regardless of how busy I am. And I'm just going to have to figure out kind of how to juggle everything else. Because initially my strategy was that when something new comes across my desk, I don't do it that day. I'll schedule it after that in order to maximize the productivity of that day. However, that was allowing a little bit too much power for me to kind of push things I didn't want out. And I was starting to procrastinate a little bit more. So I'm kind of reevaluate that and work on the system where if it comes across my desk and I can do it and I need to do it, then it needs to get done that day. So that was point number 3, the law of diminishing intent. The fourth point from chapter 1 is a different view of mistakes. So in chapter 1, he talks about how a lot of people view mistakes as failure and how they want to optimize to avoid failure. But he puts mistakes in a new way that I hadn't heard before in all the other books that I've read. And he says mistakes are just another way of getting things done. And that's it. And it's so true, right? Because if you're trying to do something and you make a mistake, you still will eventually accomplish that task. It's just going to maybe take a little bit longer, right? And so what it actually is it's just a different way of doing something. And so I think that mindset really kind of makes it easier on our mind and our mindset to actually go out and risk to do things, because it's just, we have a different attitude about it. We understand that this concept, making mistakes, is just another way of doing it. It's just part of the process. And I think that's really important to highlight, that making mistakes is just, or having a mistake is just another way to get something done. Because there's so much research on if you're not having mistakes or you're not making mistakes, then you're really not taking action and you're really not gonna unlock your true potential. So it's something you really, really don't want to fear to do. And I think that sentence, the way that he wrote it, really helps your mind, your conscience deal with the fact that you want to avoid mistakes. But in the actual case, it's really actually a good thing that mistakes are literally just another way of getting things done. It may be a little bit longer, but the important thing to note is that they are getting done. And that's it. So I thought that was really, really important, really interesting way of looking at it. And it's actually, I think it'll help me over the long term with that unique viewpoint of mistakes. Okay, and the fifth and final point from chapter 1 is that you can't change your destination overnight, but you can change your direction overnight. And I think this is a really important concept to understand, because what happens is when you want to make a change and you want something different in your life, it requires a decision to be made. It requires you to change. It requires you to change direction, right? But your subconscious doesn't like change, and so it'll actually fight you on it and try to convince you otherwise, right? It'll try to make you think that you're a failure, or it'll try and just dig up all these excuses on why you wouldn't be able to do it, because it's processing all the changes that are going to have to be made all at once, and it's freaking out a bit. Whereas when you understand that all you have to do is you don't have to make a massive change in your life today, you just have to change your direction. Just change the direction where you're going, right? It's a small but impactful decision that will change the trajectory of your life. You can rest in the fact that you know where you're going, you know where you're going to end up, right? And so I think just kind of understanding that you have control over your direction right now, and you can make a decision to change your direction, is really, really impactful. Yeah, you're not going to change your destination overnight, but you're going to change your direction. I think that really helps your attitude, because again, you know where you're going to end up one way or the other. You don't know how fast or how slow, but you know you're going to end up there. And I think that positive energy, that will really help you be productive over the long term and help you kind of reach towards that goal. It helps you reduce the amount of resistance you get for your subconscious, because you're reducing this big old decision that it thinks it's making into a very small, hey, we're not making a massive change, we're just changing direction. So it really helps you work with your subconscious, which I think is really important to your productivity over time. All right, guys, those are the top 5 tips that I read or that I got from this book. Again, the first one is that hope isn't a strategy. The next one is the world responds with clarity when you are clear about your goals. The third one is the law of intent. Fourth one is another way to look at mistakes. And the fifth one is that you can change, or you can't change your destination overnight, but you can change your direction. So hopefully these points will help you as much as they helped me. I will continue to read through this book. If I continue to come across chapters that are just full of really good information, I'll probably do more videos. I kind of like this structure of working through it chapter by chapter, because once again, I feel like a lot of YouTubers go or kind of zoom across tons of really good information that are left in books in order just to make one video per book. But I think some books deserve a lot more than that. So it will probably be something that I will continue doing. I will put a link in the description for this book on Amazon, not affiliate or anything like that, but if you do want to read it or buy it, whatever it is, then I will make that available down below. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your time. Good luck, stay productive, and I'll see you in my next video.